Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast. What is happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Let me talk to you.
And man, do we have a lot to talk about in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more. You are tuned in to the entertainment edition of the ODPH, and we definitely like to keep those conversations rolling after the show. So, Pad, where does everybody go?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Social media links, TeePublic Store links, Patreon link, $1 tier, $2 a month, and you can join all the cool kids. Blogs, directories. Pat, how many providers are we on?
We are on 914,486.
I don't question it, folks. He is the statistician to the stars for a reason. The classified section, which has friends of the show, such as 3FM Podcast, Dragon Master Games, Nerd Initiative, and many more. The music section, and so much more. It can be found at odphpodcast.com. And remember on social media to use the hashtag ODPHpod. We have to really dive into this episode, folks, so you get the short intro this week because, let's face it, we have not had a strong streaming presence like this in quite some time, Pat.
Probably since late 2020, early 2021.
Arguably, when everybody started coming back from the pandemic.
Yeah.
And everything was just oversaturated on the streaming services.
Yep.
It's kind of that renaissance right now, if you will.
I almost need to, use the calendar for more than just on my phone, other than just looking at what day of the week it is, and start putting on my calendar what day stuff comes out on, because it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, Acolyte comes out on this day. What day does The Boys come out on? Because I know House of the Dragon is on Sundays, and what day is the Boys on again? Wait, it's confusing.
It is, but I am not complaining one bit.
Neither am I.
As somebody that really enjoys all fandoms and watches as much as I physically can, even though there's something wrong, I know there is. It's still a great time to just be sitting there and seeing so many returning shows and debut shows. Really exciting a fan base that obviously we're coming out of the writer's strike.
Yep.
And the actor strike too, that we're now getting that extra surplus of content.
Yeah.
And more the better, because obviously when everybody goes, oh, there's nothing on, right here we have prime examples of some of the best shows you're going to watch.
Yeah.
So that being said, we are going to be deep diving into a lot of shows this week. One is going to be a little shorter than the rest because, let's face it,
it was a short episode.
It was a short episode, so there's not a lot to deep dive into that. But the one that is going to be kicking off this edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition is the return of The Boys.
Hell yes.
Yes, the one-of-a-kind show that really takes a look at superheroes in a way that, honestly, I don't think pop culture was ready for.
Nope.
Returned to Amazon Prime Video with 3 episodes to kick off Season 4, the penultimate season.
Yep.
Carl Urban, Jack Quaid, Anthony Starr, Aaron Moriarty, Jesse T. Usher, Laz Alonso, Chase Crawford, Tomara Capone, Karen Fukuhara, and many, many more are reprising this insane world of the Seven versus the Boys. Who is really the right voice of reason here? Is it the superheroes that run crazy with their powers, or is it the group that is willing to go to drastic measures to stop them?
And we should stress for this show, a lot of times you might look at a show or a movie and look at, oh, there's the moral compass. There's the better tomorrow to strive for. If you're using this show for a moral compass, don't.
No, you can't.
Please don't.
The one thing that really stands out about this show is it comes from a very creative team that has a very unique view of superheroes.
Yes.
I would say arguably, not on the same level,
okay,
but arguably in the same conversation, this goes along with Alan Moore's Watchmen.
Yeah.
In the same idea that superheroes are not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right.
That there are many shades of gray to them, that not everything is just black and white.
Yeah.
And you see this especially with Garth Ennis writing. And Derek Robertson is on the artwork for the book. If you haven't checked this out, Dynamite Entertainment is the place to go for it. There's a lot of things. I mean, I'm seeing stuff pop up about possible sales at different bookstores. So just, check it out, or better yet, go to your LCS and go ask to order some stuff. That's where I would recommend too, because I've been seeing a lot of stuff pop up, but not enough to really comment on. But their view, especially Garth's, who has always had a very unique take on superheroes, really exemplified how flawed these characters are.
And it honestly took a look at some of the aspects of these heroes that, like, inevitably when you're watching either the live action movies, the animated series, or even reading the trade paperbacks, that, like, you might sit there and wonder, okay, Superman or Wonder Woman, or pick your flying superhero, goes and takes this superhero into outer space, or like even the scene from Man of Steel. Like, they never really touch on the fight scene from Man of Steel and just the ramifications from that, and like what it means for the population, and like all the damage and all the death and mayhem in this. If that scene happened in The Boys, they would not shy away from that.
No, they wouldn't. And that's the one thing you have to respect about this. Like, this is very in your face. There's a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, so to speak.
DC and Marvel are very much, don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain when it comes to that stuff.
Well, it's,
and understandably so.
Knowing the history of this book, it's funny you mentioned about DC. That's a great deep dive if anybody wants to go down and check that out. Because for where it ended up with Dynamite, it's a great story behind this.
Right.
But it really exemplifies the creative freedom and how much DC respected the book, too, to let it go to Dynamite when it was under the Wildstorm print, way back when. But to see where it is now, and the adaptation is very faithful to the comic, with certain exceptions, though.
Sure.
But that's to be, comes with everything that gets adapted to live action. It really captures the essence of, just how really intense this story is, and really gives the viewers a lot to process. So that being said, season 4 has kicked off this week. We are going to be recapping episodes 1, 2, and 3 of this season. Now, if you're new to the ODPH, first and foremost, thank you for checking us out. We do appreciate it. Drop a review on your favorite podcatcher. What we like to do is give a spoiler-free statement about what we watched. So you'll have an idea of what we're talking about. If you haven't seen the episode, however, for whatever reason, or episodes in this case, that's fine. We give you a countdown to duck out. After said countdown, you have a choice to make. Either you pause the episode, go watch the shows, and then come back in for the conversation, or you let it roll and you hear all the spoiler talk, because we don't hold anything back. So you have been fair warned. Pat even puts the timestamp in the liner notes.
Yep.
That is how far we go to make sure we don't spoil anything for you, because we care, and we don't like to have anything get spoiled. But that being said, Pat, episodes 1, 2, and 3 of The Boys, what is your spoiler-free statement?
I enjoyed it. Thought it's been really good. Couple of plots in the show I really don't care for, and I'm kind of wondering why they're going on, especially now that we know next season is going to be the final one, so we're on a finite amount of time. And some of the stories with some of the characters just feel like rehashes, that like, okay, we've kind of been here, done that. Why are we doing this again? But overall, I would say the first 3 episodes have been very good and very enjoyable.
The first 3 episodes have been very solid. And I know I use that word a lot when it's just even keel to what we've seen before.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of reinventing the wheel. And that's a good thing, because you don't need to do it with this show. You still have the strong performances by Carl Urban and Anthony Starr.
Yep.
And how Starr has not gotten an Emmy yet is up there with Better Call Saul. It's one of the unknown mysteries of life. But where they're going, obviously, they're the focal attention of this show. However, what they've done is they're giving everybody almost their little swan songs beforehand, before bowing out. Because we don't know the amount of episodes for next season.
Correct.
The only thing we do know that it's going to be the final season.
I think we can safely say they're not going to pull a Walking Dead and make it like 24.
No.
They're not going to do that.
No. It'll be short. In fact, I would even go out on a limb and say it will be under 8.
Probably. I'm going to say 5 or 6.
Yeah, that would be a safe number. I think at least 6, if not 8. But there's really not much further if you read the books.
Yeah.
And the books have only been 70, 75 issues.
Something like that, yeah.
So there's not a lot more to go with the story. There are some avenues they can go down.
Right. Which
we do know about a couple spinoffs that are happening in this universe, and that's perfectly fine. But for where this main cast is going to be, they're really trying to emphasize where Homelander and Butcher are. The other characters, like I alluded to, are getting their swan songs, their final storylines, and you're seeing that getting set up little by little here. When we get to the end of the season, I don't think a lot of them are coming back for different reasons.
Probably not.
But I think that as you see how it's getting set up, we are expecting a big showdown, and I think that's going to be what really accelerates this timeline to going into that final season, because I know when it happens in the books, there's a lot of fast-paced stuff that happens.
Yeah.
So that being said, I really think they came back strong. It's the same old formula, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's the vibe you get here. So if you've been watching since episode 1, you're truly happy. If you're jumping in now, there's a lot to process. And how it's written, I will just say this very, very quickly. How it's written, this is how it's really kind of always been. So there's nothing that's been really changed to do any kind of reflections of the current times, if you will. And that's all I'm going to leave it at. This is how it's been set up since day one, folks. So if you haven't been paying attention, this is how it's been going, especially with Homelander's character. Nothing is changed for that. But let us get into that spoiler talk because we have a lot to process. So, Pad, in 3, 2, 1, let's talk about it.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I thought the first 3 episodes have been very good. I dig the story that's going on with Homelander and Butcher and Huey and all that going on, especially the Starlight stuff. Super interested in that. I just do not care that for the Frenchie Kimiko storyline. We've been here before. We've done this storyline before. Why are we doing this again? You know, and then also the Huey, his father/mother. You know, that whole triangle, you know, going on with like, with what's happened to the father. And then the mother shows up for the first time in God knows how long. First time in this show, but in terms of storyline purposes, the first time in decades. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I understand what they're trying to do with having the mother show up and this whole thing. But like, we've already been here, done that. So why are we doing this? As for some of the other stuff, shout out Tilda Swinton.
Yes.
Fucking hysterical. Shout out Will Ferrell. Did not see that coming. Fucking hysterical on that one. You know, but overall, I've really enjoyed the first 3 episodes.
It's a return to form.
Yeah.
And we knew coming out of last season, Homelander had caused this unique social revolution, so to speak. Kind of going back into his theory, I can do whatever I want.
Yep.
And with great power comes no responsibility. That is how his character has always been. And now, the one thing that fans might forget about a lot is the 7 is based off popularity and pop culture.
There's a reason they keep talking about the number of views and the popularity and the metrics and the numbers and everything else. It's not just for filling in sentences in a script.
Right. So I think they've now gone back to that a little bit, and they're really doubling in on this. And this is where you're seeing a lot of similarities, you know, to like Youngblood when that came out from Image Comics 30 years ago. Just this is blown up to a different degree because this is just an unhinged Homelander who suffered a
psychotic break.
Yeah, the easiest way to say it, fall from grace, because he is somebody that lives for the spotlight. He wants to be loved. He wants to be considered a god. And
let's not forget, some people were a little shocked at what happened at the end of last season. This is the same dude who crashed a plane deliberately.
Yeah.
What was that, season 1? Yeah. Like, he's always been this kind of person.
Yeah, he's never been a good person.
No.
Ever. And that is what really makes him a villain you love to hate.
He's a shitty person with a nice coat of paint over top of him, but as the saying always goes, you can paint it whatever color you want, but a turd still smells like a turd.
And they really dive in heavy to that for this season.
Yeah, they do.
Which, I mean, I get, because at the end of the day, it's Homelander and Butcher.
Yep.
It's Karl Urban and Anthony Starr. That's the storyline.
That's the main event.
That is. Everybody else is playing their roles.
Uh-huh.
And the one thing is, with the 7, they have a rotating cast. Obviously, from last season, a few characters did not come back.
This is true.
So they have to restack the deck. And that is where they really jump into, because they also have to worry about a certain political threat to them as well, because they find out that one Victoria Newman is actually a soup in her own right.
Yes, she is.
And that is causing a lot of problems because of how she's using this to enhance her political career and what this can all play into. And it really goes into, you know, this other storyline that's happening around here with Claudia Dumont, who's been great in this role too, is really kind of working everybody behind the scenes and how she's backing the boys publicly. And, you know, even though she's hiding what she's doing because it's for her own political advancement, even though Homelander is also using this for his own political gain too, because he thinks if he can win over the people, he can just run roughshod over everybody in the Vought universe. And that is where they really kind of kick in, because the first episode just dives into the boys trying to take out one of the Newman's events.
Yep.
But things go completely crazy because Homelander is there with his son Ryan.
Which they are not expecting.
No. And this throws everything off because Butcher
is distracted.
Yeah, completely distracted. And obviously, we know that he only has 6 months to live because he took that experimental V drug that gave him
Compound
powers.
V, yeah.
So this is really a factor that plays in so much here.
Well, and the vibe I got off of at least the start of this episode was they still had even with Homelander showing up, they still had a shot to pull it off, although it might not have been the cleanest job of all time. They might have still had a chance, but it's the fact that Butcher just couldn't help himself, and understandably so to a certain degree.
Yeah.
He wanted to see Ryan, and he wanted to talk to Ryan, and he wanted to persuade Ryan to hey, listen, your dad's an awful piece of shit. He killed someone in broad daylight in front of everyone. There's nothing good or redeeming about him. Your mom is in a safe house. I can take you to your mom, and we can get you out of here, and you can live with your mom. And by doing that and really just having this long extended conversation with Ryan, Homelander ends up finding him and goes, oh, well, look what the cat dragged in.
Yeah.
And that blows everyone's cover because Homelander then, listen, he's a psychopath, but he's not an idiot. Figures, oh, you're here, so that means the rest of your crew is here.
Yeah. So that throws everything up. But there was a great moment, though, between Karl Urban and Anthony Starr. Like I say, their chemistry on screen together is just it's perfect.
Phenomenal.
It is the truly fight forever and how they play off each other. And even Homelander sees that tumor that's inside Butcher. And he's just kind of he just kind of gives him a couple quips. And it's just, the sarcasticness and the snarkiness. And it goes into their rivalry and what causes this. And everything just completely goes awry, too, because when you see Frenchie and Kimiko, I'm sorry, go into Newman's hotel room trying to plant something, they find her daughter there, or actually crashes the party.
Yep.
And it turns out that she's a soup.
Yep.
With tentacle monster abilities.
It's like something out of Pacific Rim or a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane. She winds up killing the Secret Service that's there to protect her. There's a wild scene that's going on. Starlight has to use her powers to cause a distraction. Everybody has to jump out of a hotel. It's a wild sequence. But this is how it kicks off everything. And this is where you really get, okay, the boys are back. And that's something to really say, let's get down to business.
There's also this ongoing question that I don't think even through the first 3 episodes has been answered. She might be invulnerable. She might have invincibility. There's that whole plot line going on too.
Yeah, that's what I say. There's a lot with her character that we don't know yet. I mean, the comics is one version. So, but I don't know if they're adapting anything for this version of live action.
Right.
So, like I say, there could be some things happening on it.
Because I know that gets brought up later when they're getting debriefed back at what is it, the CIA, the FBI, whatever it is, and they're like, well, this might not have gone down anyway because she might be invulnerable.
Yeah. So that is another plot line that's building up here too. But then it kind of really goes back to Homelander and what he's doing now, and then he notices he's now developing gray hairs. And he knows his body is now changing, and obviously with him being a super soup, if we can say that, there's a lot that's going there, and especially with the direction he wants to take the Seven in. And this is where he is becoming more unhinged.
Yep.
And we see that he does something, which, I mean, if anybody was debating about how ruthless he is, he forces the other 3 members that are currently on the roster of the 7, Black Noir 2, The Deep, and A-Train, to kill 3 supporters of him because he wants to stage a political statement to go against Starlight's movement to have him prosecuted for the murder of that innocent, well, I shouldn't say innocent, the one that attacked him and threw the bottle at him, that he blew his head off with his laser beams. So this is now causing a social split between his supporters and the anti-Homelanders.
All the meanwhile this is going on, Homelander's actually being put on trial for what happened because it happened in broad freaking daylight on television news cameras. So it's like, okay, we can't avoid this or ignore this. So he's actually on trial, and because it's such a tinderbox or a powder keg moment, you have the 2 arguing factions across from each other with only a small police barrier in between them.
But he's getting a lot of help here from a soup that has definitely made an impression in the first 3 episodes. And that is Sister Sage, played by Susan Hayward.
Phenomenal job.
She's crushing it right now.
Love her performance.
Oh, my God, yeah. She is absolutely giving you this the Maker vibes.
Yes.
From Reed Richards' Ultimate Universe. Like,
yes.
She is the smartest person on the planet.
And she knows it.
And even when she is brought into this, A-Train is very skeptical because he knows her. And there's a bit of sense of like...
There's some history between the two.
Yeah, that you don't know what you've unleashed here.
Yep.
And I love how they set that up with A-Train. And like I say, you see his character has gone through a lot this week. I mean, Jesse T. Usher, who plays him, has really developed...
Yeah.
This compelling case that there's almost this sympathetic side to him that is slowly winning the audience over. And it's very interesting to see how that does, especially where we've seen him gone from 3 seasons to now.
Yeah.
That I don't think anybody had him picked that you were going to be rooting for him.
No, and in fact, I am a little bit.
Yeah, like I say, it's just great to the storyline they're doing. But Sage is the one that when Homelander meets up with her, they start concocting this idea about how to take over the world, more or less, and how they're going to rebuild the Seven and win over the public and really establish themselves as the true superiors of this universe, because that's what they feel they are with their powers. I mean, that's the argument that they've always had. They feel they're gods amongst men.
Well, and I think she even brings this up at one point. She's like, realistically, what is to stop you from doing whatever the hell it is you want? Like, who can stop you? Like, is there a government or an entity out there that can tell you no, and you have to listen?
Yeah. It's a very interesting setup that she does, but like I say, there's a lot of the Reed Richards character from the Ultimate Universe that I see in her. And seeing how that has played out, I think that's huge, because you see that Sage is actually the responsible party for starting the riot that happened between Starlight's very peaceful coalition and Homelander's very aggressive followers.
Yeah, because it was actually fairly tame for most of it.
Yeah.
And by fairly tame, I mean it wasn't like any imminent threat of something going down. People are yelling, people are screaming, but like, okay, that's, standard. But then Sage shows up and throws a bottle of something at the other side and shouts, and of course, with things being at a powder keg, and especially a lightning strike or whatever you want to call it moment, because the jury's in deliberations or whatever it's called, where they're debating whether the person is guilty or not, And I think right before, if I remember right before this all kicks off, the verdict is read, and Homelander is found. Even Starlight knows he's going to be found not guilty. There's the entire Starlighters campaign she's a part of and helping with it. They're like, oh, you should go down there and you should support him, and you should really show your face and back things up. And she's like, why? He's going to be found not guilty. And that's what ends up happening, and then you see the riot kick off.
Yeah, Erin Moriarty's Starlight this season is in a very unique place because she's a former Seven member.
Yep.
She's now going against Homelander, been very public about what he's done, and she's the only, I would say thus far, the only redeeming character on this show.
She's definitely having some inner turmoil about what's going on.
Right, but like I say, she's definitely getting pulled in a lot of different directions because she doesn't want to be in the spotlight. But she has to be because she is in this weird...
She's the face of the organization.
Yeah, I want to say like she's the symbol of hope, and that's it's weird to say because she's not exactly somebody that's squeaky clean.
It's a faceless, at its core, the whole prospect of like doing the right thing and standing up and everything else that like the Starlighters are about. When you peel back and take away the label and the identity of like, oh, Starlight is the face of this movement. There really is no face of that movement. It's just common moral good. But because of what's going on and because of her telling her story and putting herself out there, she is the face of a faceless entity.
Yeah.
And unless whatever happens isn't her fault, it's just she's in that place and time.
Yeah, so I like how they're setting up her story this year.
Yeah, I do too.
I think that's a great secondary story because obviously it's Homelander and Butcher.
Yeah.
It's like we have to say that that's the main event. This is the co-main event, if you will. You know? So I like how they're saying these are the two storylines I have the most focus on. Because even with Butcher, he is now kind of stepping away from running the boys. He's more. Well,
they kick him out.
Yeah, they have to demote him because he's just too reckless.
And he goes and tells them what happened and how he's only got, so long to live. I don't think he ever fully tells him how long. He just says, I don't have long.
No, he tells him the time frame.
Okay.
He said at the end of last season.
And they go, listen, you haven't been on the up and up with us. You've almost cost us these jobs. Like, you need to leave.
Mm-hmm. But he's still lingering around, and plus now he's seeing hallucinations.
Yeah.
That are driving him to go reunite with Ryan. And this is something that is going to put him in a lot of danger, but with the time ticking against him, he really doesn't have an option.
Well, and he's also almost does the backroom deal with Victoria Newman, where he's trying to save his ass, and she's like, "Listen, you scratch your back, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You want me to do what you want? You got to get me the information Huey has on me, because we find out in this episode Huey's got some damning information on Victoria Newman that would not do well in the light of day." And she goes, "Listen, you give me Huey's information, I'll give you what you want." And when Butcher starts hallucinating and seeing
his
wife Becca, he decides and comes to the conclusion, because the hallucinations goes, "Oh, you screwed him over before, so you're about to screw him over again."
Yeah.
And he comes to the conclusion, fuck, okay, I can't screw him over, and he sends an image to Victoria Newman and decides to not screw over Huey.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a strong debut episode, and it rolls right into the second episode entitled Life Among the Septics. That is the name, folks. I don't make that up.
Yep.
And it kicks off with arguably one of the funniest moments.
One of the most unsuspecting moments.
Yeah. We see that there is a movie being filmed.
Training a Train.
Yes.
It's an A-Train origin movie.
Mm-hmm. And how he's apparently running drugs.
He's a track star, but whether it's for like college or high school, it's not entirely clear. And he's kind of given up on it because he's from the streets and he can't be about that life. And his coach tracks him down to really talk him out of it. And who's his coach?
The one and only Will Ferrell.
Playing himself.
Crying. I was crying during this.
So good.
This was hysterical. And then the director is gassing him up completely.
You're gonna get an Academy Award for this performance.
Yeah. What is that in the air? Oh yeah, that's an Academy Award. And he's like, no, stop. He's like, oh, chills. You see the goosebumps. Like it was completely hilarious about how this was going down.
Yeah.
And like one of the few moments of like honest happiness here.
Yep.
But then it kind of shifts gears a little bit because we do have a new Black Noir. Obviously, the first one was killed by Homelander because he knew some information about Soldier Boy and he withheld it from Homelander, and you can't be dishonest to him.
Yep.
So they do have a second one in there that is very distinctly different than the first.
Very confused about everything.
Yeah, which
doesn't understand the whole you don't talk aspect.
Mm-hmm. And I have an idea where they're going with this one. And if you've read the comics, I fully think they're doing the comic version.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say about that. 'Cause even though that is a spoiler and we are in spoiler territory, I don't want to do the full reveal.
Yeah.
But if you read the comics, you know. And he is expressing to A-Train about, well, when Homelander said about killing, that's the first time he's done that.
Mm-hmm.
And A-Train is just basically saying, you need to learn to shut up.
You need to be quiet like your predecessor.
Yeah, you can't talk. And that's going to get you in trouble. So on the flip side, though, you do see the Butcher is just telling everybody, how much his time is there.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, this is where the moment where it's kicked out. Like I thought he said it at the end of last season.
Yeah.
But either way, he has now completely divulged the information, and they basically said, listen,
get the fuck out.
You've crossed this too much. You got to leave. We're going to finish this on our own. And this causes them to kind of take matters in their own hands because they start doing a little investigating because they know Sage is up to something. They realize that she is now doing some work for Homelander. And
because of their connections, they've got some access to the federal databases, and they know who Super Sage is and her powers and everything else and her backstory, and they're like, all right, something ain't, and they don't know fully what she's doing, but they know the smell doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah. So they start checking that out. All the while, Homelander is setting up his son to be the next super member of the Seven, whether Ryan wants to or not.
Yep.
And you can see how uncomfortable he is.
Very.
Even though he's supposed to be filming the movie or TV show that they're doing, because that's something that Vought does with the Seven. They promote them as celebrities. So you're seeing Ryan go through this whole scenario where he's stopping bank robbers,
Mm-hmm.
and he's
It's
trying
like a
to
table read.
Yeah, and he's coming off very awkward, and he's very nervous. And the stuntman that's working with him is trying to be very, generous to him
Yeah.
and help him out and guide him as much as he can. So that'll come back to haunt later. But like we say, you see the boys are now investigating Sage, and this leads to TruthCon, which is basically a conspiracist Comic-Con.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it is a wild scenario.
We're talking Bigfoot is real, aliens built the pyramids kind of convention.
Yes. And they wind up investigating a unique persona involving one Firecracker, who's played by Valerie Curry. Pat, how would you describe Firecracker?
Well, she's, as her name says, she's a firecracker. She definitely gets folks going and gets them riled up and is very media savvy.
Yes. And she is the anti-Starlight to every single political spectrum.
Hates her guts. Anything that goes wrong. If it's raining that day, Starlight's fault. If the soda I had at the restaurant last night was missing its syrup, Starlight's fault. If my cheeseburger didn't have enough cheese on it, Starlight's fault. She's that type of person.
Were you getting Tiger King, Carol Baskin vibes?
Abso-goddamn-lutely.
Yeah, I did too. I was waiting to say, that damn Starlight. So you do see that she's leading her own panel. Because
she's got a very big online presence.
Yeah. So she's very big in TikTok or whatever you want.
Whatever their equivalent is.
Yeah. So she's now trying to spill her conspiracy against Starlight and everything going on there.
Yep.
She does have an ally in one Splinter, who is basically a very, very low self-esteem multiple man.
Pretty much, yeah. And that's putting it very mildly.
Yeah, Robert Benedict played him, and he did very well in the role. We'll just say that.
If you've seen the episode, you know. If you haven't seen it yet, you'll find out.
Yeah, let's just say his devotion goes up and down a lot of ways.
I'll be honest, I felt bad for the guy by the end of this episode.
I was just like...
I felt bad for him.
Yeah, well, there's no way you couldn't, because obviously with the boys around there, Sage is there. Sage knows what they're up to. They set the boys up for an ambush. And it winds up resulting in Splinter's death.
Yep.
Because Butcher has to come in and make the save.
Because while the main, I think is what they call them, Splinter lives, they can keep splitting into twos and so on and so forth. But the instant the main Splinter dies, that's it. It's all over with. And I feel like Splinter's relationship with Firecrackers is a very interesting commentary on parasocial relationships.
It reminded me, okay, well, let me put this. In comparison, but not to the extremes that was done on the show.
Right.
Executioner and Enchantress.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way you can describe that.
Yeah.
But how it came across, Firecracker escapes and the Splinter is killed off after a lot of nakedness and running around. And,
good Lord, yeah.
And crashing Miss Maisel.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, it wasn't the Marvelous Ms. Maisel, but it was an equivalent that I have to look it up. I wanted to say they used some of the same actors and actresses.
I believe they did.
It wasn't Marvelous Ms. Maisel, but it was this universe's equivalent.
Yes. So
I got to look that up now that I think about that.
No, it was a great little Easter egg they put in there, because I think it was a lot of the same actors that are involved with that. So that winds up causing a little rift, and you see that obviously Butcher and Mother's Milk, played by Laz Alonso, is still butting heads and just basically, they're thankful that Butcher bailed them out, but still is not welcome back.
Yeah, you're on a very short leash.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, we'll see how things go, but we're not ruling everything out. But where the show ends here, though, is Homelander is now not handling the rise of his son Ryan becoming a superhero well. That he feels that there's a little disconnect. There's a little connection with Butcher too much that he's not happy with. And when Ryan is trying to work out with the stuntman who's been helping him, Homelander winds up interfering.
Because he can't help himself.
No, he can't. The spotlight's there, and he's not in it, and he can't handle the fact that his son is not a perfect superhero.
Because if I'm not mistaken, while they were planning this whole thing, in the initial plans, Homelander was in those plans to be a part of this whole thing.
Right.
But then they figured, oh, you know what? Why don't we do this as his own thing? You're going to overshadow him too much or whatever it was. And it was going along, I don't want to say fine, but serviceable.
Yeah.
And then he just shows up.
And he interjects himself because he's not happy with how Ryan's doing things.
Yeah.
And he literally causes Ryan to unleash his powers that are still developing, mind you.
Yeah.
And Ryan winds up throwing the poor stuntman into a building.
Like 3 or 4 stories up.
Yeah, it's like a windshield and a bug on a highway.
At about 70 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. And Homelander's just kind of sitting there applauding and just so proud. And Ryan is mortified about what he's done.
And so is everyone else around him.
Yeah, everyone else is like, what is going on? Like, this makes, like, what are you doing?
Uh-huh.
So this kind of feels a little more question marks about Homelander, what's going on, but the general public is too scared to do anything.
Yeah.
However, though, it does appear that Homelander's actions are rubbing some people the wrong way, especially with A-Train, because he winds up doing something that is a very shocking move, and he winds up giving evidence, a video that clearly shows that Starlight's supporters were not capable of doing the murders.
That and specifically, it's those 3 individuals, like 4 or 5 blocks away, whatever it was, at the exact same time the riot was going on.
Yeah, and that's how that episode wraps up for number 2. Number 3, entitled "We'll Keep the Red Flag Flying Here," kicks right off, not even processing what happens. Homelander and Sage are introducing everybody that's part of the new 7.
Yeah, this was an interesting start just because in the last episode when Homelander was first meeting Sage and he tried convincing her to be in the 7 then, and she flat out told him no, and she didn't want to wear one of those costumes. Start of the very next episode, she's in the group and wearing one of those costumes.
Well, I think that has to do with a lot of Vought and the conflicting forces that are at hand here, because Sage does have an enemy in one Ashley Barrett, who's played by the one and only Colby Minifie, who is incredible in her role.
And I will say, the previous 3 seasons, I really haven't cared for the character. She's there, she's on screen, and I pay attention. I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. But for the first time, especially with this season, I'm going, okay, I'm a little invested in this.
Yeah, because she's always been in the background since she's had to step in the role of being the publicist head person of Vought in dealing with the 7. So there is kind of that friction that's going on, but I think that's a lot of them forcing what is going on at hand. So Sage and Firecracker are introduced as part of the 7.
Yep.
And Homelander's teasing another member coming. He's teasing his son Ryan.
Right.
But this rally is just in there excited because it's the unveiling of the super team that's going to save the world. And I find it just so interesting about how they're setting this up, because this is just ignoring what has happened. Homelander's just getting down to business. Sage is just pulling his strings left and right. And setting up for whatever moves she's trying to do, because now she's
the mastermind.
Yeah, she's now become the number 2 of the 7.
She is the supervillain, and Homelander is the henchman. Homelander is, the weapon that she's going to point at her enemies or her target and just unleash them.
And she also does this too, because when they have the first meeting of the 7, Sage fires Ashley.
Well, air quotes.
Yes. As CEO.
They keep her on, but she's she's a figurehead. She's no longer the actual CEO. She's the PR CEO.
Yeah.
She's the one they're going to dole out in the public events and the public appearances. But for all intents and purposes, she's an intern.
Because Homelander is now convinced, because Sage is saying the 7 is not strong enough. That there's a lot of weak members a part of here, and they need to either toughen up or get new members.
Yeah.
To literally put it mildly, because she knows what's coming, and like she has that sense about her. And I like how they do the setup here, because even with the Deep, she winds up having a pep talk with him and gets rid of that Aquaman stigma.
Yeah.
That you talk to fish. That's the only thing you do.
Like, what is there any good about you?
Albeit, though, there is one fish, or should I say octopus,
Hell yeah.
that we were not expecting to see or I should say hear the voice of.
Uh-huh.
But we do find out that the Deep, who is now newly divorced because he has been having an affair with an octopus, comics folks, or as we like to say here, reasons. We find out that his octopus has been kept in his room and
in his closet, behind his rack of clothes.
Mm-hmm. And we find out that the voice behind this octopus is who, Pat?
Tilda Swinton.
Yes.
Which I heard the voice and I'm like, that sounds really freaking familiar.
Yep, same here.
Hit the up button on my remote because thank you, Amazon Prime, for that little feature. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Tilda.
Yeah. So they're going through their relationship woes, if you will, to put it mildly.
Very mildly.
So Sage has taken an interest in the Deep and tried building up his confidence. In fact, he even tells Ashley off, which is something very wild because if you've seen the Deep's character from season 1 to now, he's had the ultimate fall from grace, and to see him now put in a position of somewhat power.
Yeah, that's a little frightening.
It's a little frightening. And I think the other members of the Seven are feeling this, especially A-Train, who now apparently is working with Mother's Milk and the rest of the group to take down Homelander because he's just getting too out of control.
Yep.
All the while, there is a backstory that Pat and I kind of alluded to in the spoiler-free part with Frenchie and Kimiko. Mm-hmm. That this is just the same old same.
Yeah, we've seen this before.
Yeah, so Frenchie is starting to take some drugs to handle his demons of his past.
Yep.
Kimiko is coming into a situation where she needs to deal with her own
confront some stuff,
drama. And I mean, this does lead into a confrontation involving Kimiko's past. There really isn't a lot to dive into about this. So they're just kind of giving them a storyline to do, which I get. And I think that
screen time.
Yeah, which they have to do. You juggle around a cast that's this big, you have to give everybody some time to to have the audience invested.
Yeah.
And that is something that they've done here. They've also done this with Huey a little bit.
Yeah.
Because his dad has had a stroke.
Yep.
He now deals with his mother who left when he was 6.
And Huey can't make any of the decisions because I forget what the phrase is, but
power of attorney.
Thank you. The mother has power of attorney.
Yeah.
So despite the fact that she's had nothing to do with the family for like 20 some odd years or whatever it is, she's in control of everything.
Yeah. So this is becoming a minor plot point here, but Huey is more focused, like the stuff that we're paying attention to more, because this just seems like this feels forced.
A little bit.
To be honest with you. Like, I'm not invested in this at all.
Yeah.
But I am invested when he has to go work with Mother's Milk to try hearing a plot that's going on between the dealings of Newman and Homelander. And they wind up walking into a
rehearsal.
Rehearsal for an ice show that is one of a kind, and I need to see the ticket for because I definitely don't want to miss it. And
well, too bad it's sold out.
Yes. So Huey does wind up infiltrating and picking up a lot of information that he needs that could do a lot of damning information. But unfortunately, he's dripping with sweat because he's in a vent. And during the Vaught on Ice,
which is an actual website.
Yes. Which
you can go to vaughtonice.com. It's an actual freaking thing. They have actual show dates and everything. Good luck getting tickets, though, because it's all sold out.
Well, how could it not be?
I know.
Homelander on Ice. That sells itself. But Huey does wind up tipping off Homelander that he's there because sweat trips off his nose.
Yep.
Homelander winds up going and looking for him.
Well, Homelander starts tearing the fucking place apart.
Oh, yeah, because he knows.
He smells it, and he even says his last name.
Yeah.
He goes, it's this guy.
Yep. So he winds up tearing the place apart. He winds up in his rampage killing some of the members of the ICE group.
Directly and indirectly.
Yes.
Some of those people died by laser beams. Other people died by ice skates.
Yes. It's a wild scenario to see play out, but it was one that is just completely the boys.
For a show I didn't think could have any moments, at least anymore, because like I'm not going to say I get numb to it, but like you expect it. Mm-hmm. I did not expect some of the deaths in this episode.
No, but
I was still shocked. Like, okay, Homelander killing people. Like, all right, yeah, that's standard for this show. Okay, but then you had some of the people like tripping and falling and like slashing people open with their ice skates. I'm like, oh, good God.
Yeah, it got out of control, and luckily A-Train came back to save him.
Because he couldn't open a door.
Right. So it is kind of an interesting storyline with A-Train. I think that he's now winning fans over.
Yeah.
I don't know how long this is going to last, though. That's the only thing I'm waiting to see if he is actually on the up and up.
I'm going to say episode 6 is when it's going to all come to a head.
Well, it has to.
Just a guess.
Something needs to. Meanwhile, though, they kind of tie back into Homelander's rage against Butcher, and he's now taking it out on Ryan because Ryan had a secret meetup with Butcher rather. Butcher
on
was
an
gonna,
online game.
Yep, Butcher was going to give him some magical cookies.
Yeah.
That were going to depowerize him.
Yeah.
But he couldn't go through with it. Butcher is just in a very complex situation. He's now hallucinating. We do see that he's talking to an old friend of his named Joe Kessel, who's played by the one and only Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Yep.
And we just don't know if he's real or not. Like, that's something they've been very coy about.
Mm-hmm.
And I know our good friend Dre Driven is saying he's a dream. I'm kind of leaning the same thing. I think it's like Sixth Sense.
Could be.
But we'll have to wait to see how that all kind of shapes up. But it also leads into more of a breakdown going on between Ryan and what he's eventually going to do and lash out. And you do see how Butcher is now just trying to reset himself because he knows he knows he's losing everything.
Yeah.
So he makes plans to go back home. All the while, though, there are a couple other plot lines that are going on. We now see Sage apparently had a little more information or more incentive to work with the Deep.
Yeah.
They wind up having a little a personal time.
Yeah, well, she's eating an Outback Bloomin' Onion, which apparently is the calling card to get inside the Deep's heart.
Yeah.
Because he goes, oh, is that a Bloomin' Onion? Yeah, you want some? Sure. They start sharing them, and then they start making out. Why? Reasons.
But I think that she sees a lot of power and potential in him.
Oh yeah,
that she can completely use.
He's just another pawn.
Mm-hmm.
That listen, I get this guy wrapped around my finger. I can point him in any direction I want, and although he might not be the most effective pawn, he still has his purpose.
Mm-hmm. And then the only other plot point they did establish is why Firecracker does not like Starlight.
Boy, did they establish that very clearly.
Yep, and this is dealing back to when they were young kids.
Yeah, they were in a pageant together.
Mm-hmm. And this is because Starlight completely lied about Firecracker to the judges or to...
Well, no, she lied and told a lie about Firecracker to the other contestants, and that the only reason Firecracker was there was because she slept with one of the judges.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, at the time this incident occurred, if I remember correctly, they were like 13, 14.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so the
Yikes.
squeaky clean image of Starlight is completely out the window.
She never denies it.
Nope.
She goes, listen, I was dumb. I was a kid. I said a lot of stupid stuff.
Yeah. And that's how it all wraps up for the first 3 episodes. A lot to process here.
Yeah.
But I think they really established a few directions they're going in. I mean, the Homelander Butcher storyline, that's the one everybody's watching.
Uh-huh.
And especially Anthony Starr is just stealing scenes every time he's on them. I mean, his crazy rampages when he thinks that there's a spy in Vought and doesn't wait to kill somebody that he thinks is going to say something. I mean, it just goes into the unhingedness that is his character and is obviously making him the ultimate bad guy here. Butcher's storyline with him losing time and the breakdown is one that is keeping everybody in tune. And then from there, it's Starlight and Firecracker. And then to see the social, divisions of their supporters, respectively, and how that plays out into the social climate of their world right now, that's another big ploy, too.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is starting to slowly build time.
Yeah.
But it's not there yet to really be compelling.
Yeah, it feels almost like, I don't want to say, kind of like a prelude or an interlude of like we're in between stories. We're taking pieces from what's happened. We're setting it up with what's to come. And the only thing missing is, the match lighting the powder keg. Mm-hmm. Because that's what it is. Because at the first 2.5 episodes, or 1.5 episodes, up until the third, things feel very tense, very like on a knife's edge of like shit's about to kick off in the worst way possible, and you're just waiting for that like tipping point for things to cross. And it feels like we're almost getting there.
Yeah, I mean, they've definitely established a quick tempo. They've gotten to where they need to get with.
It's been great.
Yeah, and with 5 episodes left, I mean, they're not wasting any time to get where they need to go. I mean, this is something Eric Kripke and company have done very, very well with this show, and keeping it short and keeping it to the point. I think they're really going to drive home some points. And I don't doubt the pace picking up even faster.
Absolutely.
Because obviously with 1 season left, they got a lot of ground to cover.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, hit us up on that hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts about season 4, episodes 1, 2, and 3 of Amazon Prime and Prime Video's The Boys? Let's talk about it, shall we? First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
The content you are listening to is part of the Nerd Initiative Podcast Network. For more info about the home of pop culture positivity, be sure to check out nerdinitiative.com.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we have to break down a return of who will take the Iron Throne. Who will be the one that wins the Game of Thrones in the prequel? House of the Dragon officially returned for season 2.
After like a year and a half.
The long-awaited return. But obviously there's a lot going on in the land of the Targaryens and company in the prequel to the Game of Thrones saga that has won fans over for many, many years. Obviously, when this debuted, there was a lot of skepticism going on because Game of Thrones did not end exactly the strongest amongst the fandom.
To say the least.
But this show really won everybody over with the MVP of MVPs on this show, and that is Matt Smith, playing Daemon Targaryen. But also has a great cast along with it, too. Emma Darcy has done an amazing job being Queen Rhaenyra Targaryen as well. And we've seen some more cast and characters rise in the ranks, including Olivia Cook, who played Alicent Hightower. And now it's a stage one will rule all. There's a lot of storylines going on about who is going to be the one at the end that wins the Game of Thrones for this round. So we are going to be breaking down episode 1 of season 2 entitled A Son for a Son. So we're going to give you a spoiler-free statement, countdown, and go into spoiler talk like we did the last segment. So, Pad, give me your spoiler-free statement.
Really good. I will admit, though, I wish I would have rewatched the first season before this one because there was a couple of instances I had forgotten what was going on, but it wasn't anything too major where I was like, oh, crap, I'm forgetting entire plot points. But nonetheless, a very good, very strong first episode. You know, there's only 8 episodes for this season, so there is not any room for filler or wasting time, and it certainly hit the ground running. Holy crap.
They wasted no time getting right back into form. There's a lot of sex, there's a lot of violence, and there's a lot of Matt Smith just being Matt Smith.
Pretty much.
Which is what I show up for. And this one really made a loud statement. The ending had a lot of people talking online.
Oof.
Much in the same vein of the Red Wedding.
Not wrong.
So you have to bear that in mind, that this show is not for the squeamish. It's not for anybody that is
weak
very
constitutions.
Yeah, to put it mildly. Thank you, Pat. I was looking for the words to say. They really wanted to establish that this is picking up right where they left off.
Yep.
There was no hiccup. There was no sophomore slump. They really wanted to establish a strong tone. They did. And where we're going from here, this is not going to be anything nice by any stretch of the imagination about who is going to win between the Hightowers and the Targaryens.
Yep.
So let us get into it, Pat, in 3, 2, 1. Man, that was a tough ending.
Oh, shit. That was a wild ending.
That was insane.
I didn't think they'd go there, but damn it, they went there.
They wasted no time. But before they got there, we were visited a certain place. And Pat, where was that place we kicked off at?
First off, it was Winterfell.
Yes.
And it was explaining and adding a little bit of backstory behind why the Starks and Winterfell are so entrenched with the Wall. And that is because every however many years it is, they send a couple people up to the Wall, and they don't see it as a punishment. They see it as an honor. And one of the folks we find out is going up there is Cragen, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Cragen Stark. And he's being visited by Jacaerys Targaryen. To help Rhaenyra, because, hey, you bent the knee and you pledged to Rhaenyra, so step up, dude. And they're on top of the wall, which, how good was it to see the wall again?
It was amazing.
They're on top of the wall discussing all this, and they're like, and Cragen basically says, like, listen, I've got eyes pointed in both directions, looking north and looking south. He goes, because, my ancestors and my people didn't just build this wall for fun. And Jacaerys says, well, why did your people build this wall? And he goes, to keep out death.
Yeah.
And we the viewer really know what it's to keep out. You don't got to worry about it right now, but a couple hundred years you will.
Yeah, exactly. So
TikTok.
They waste no time establishing that. Great way to start.
We also do find out that Cragen does promise 2,000 troops for Rhaenyra.
Yes.
Worth keeping in mind.
So that is definitely a footnote for later.
Yep.
Speaking of Rhaenyra, she is flying to Storm's End and has to do a little investigative journalism, so to speak.
Yeah, because it comes back to her and she finds out that her son is dead.
Yes.
And she goes, all right, well, I got to bury him. So she goes and she tracks him down, and she does find the remain of Lucerys dragon, specifically Erex.
Yep.
And comes in landing, scaring the absolute shit out of the fishermen that are there. And she sees the pieces, and she just starts weeping.
Yeah. I mean, this has been something that was built up. I mean, going into last season, it was a tragic death.
Yeah, it was a wicked death.
And it proves that there's no honor amongst these thieves.
No.
I'm sorry, like that's what it is, because everybody's trying to steal something here. They want to steal power.
Well, as is the case with the Game of Thrones universe, not everyone thinks things all the way through.
No.
They're very impulsive.
No. And there is a lot of back and forth going on with Rhaenyra and Daemon.
Uh-huh.
And their relationship is very, very strained at this point, is the way I took it.
It's very tense.
Mm-hmm. Because Daemon's just saying, no, let's go.
We need to unite and stand together.
Yeah, we'll avenge Lucerys, but we need to go kill Aemon together.
Yeah, and Alicent's like, I'm doing fine on my own.
Yeah, and this is now causing some very big strife going on between them. And this is building up because this is not going to sit mildly. Like, no. I'm sorry, you were the first one to attack.
Yep.
And your children are now responsible for what's going on, and this is now the generational fight that's going on. This is like the Hatfield and McCoys.
Just thought the same thing.
So we are seeing the spawning of this in this universe, and this is obviously going to carry through for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
But we do see that there is a king on the throne right now, and that's King Aegon the Second.
Yeah.
And he's trying to do his best job here.
Yeah.
And like I say, in these kind of situations, it's tough to really pull this off and not have Joffrey comparisons.
I'm getting that vibe.
But there is a little about that, because when you have a young king in there and one that really is, trying to do his best, but there's like that little like piece of him that you just don't know.
He's a snarky piece of shit.
What he's going to do, and that's Tom Canary there that does this. Carney, I'm sorry. I get very amped up talking because I think he has the potential to really do some show stealing here. Because as he's playing the role here, he's just doing this just subtle job of trying to do this innocence yet snarkiest. If I can use snarkiest as a word.
Yeah.
Like, he's just pulling this off.
He's trying to be everybody's friend.
Yeah, and Glenn Carney he's doing this in such a manner too. Like, it's very subtle. And like I say, you get the Joffrey vibes, but not to the degree that you instantly hate him.
No, because it starts off with like they're having one of those public forums where like people of the realm come to voice their concerns. Or like, hey, I've got this issue. You're the king and you're in charge of everything. Can you help me out? And there's a sheep farmer who comes and visits him and basically like, hey, listen, all of my sheep got killed. We need some help, or otherwise we're not going to survive, and we got no money. And Aegon's like, oh, right. So you need this because otherwise you can't survive. Yeah, we can do this.
Yeah.
And then one of his assistants or aides basically like nudges him in the side and whispers in his ear like, okay, yes, we could do this, but then we're going to have every single person in the realm coming up to us wanting us to replace things got destroyed as a result of the war that's coming, and it will bankrupt us. And he turns around and goes, you know what, on second thought, screw you, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you kind of see just the corrupting going on here, too. And
yeah.
This is just Game of Thrones 101.
Pretty much, yeah.
That obviously there's no redeemable characters here, no matter where you want to go.
No.
And we do see that they are trying to introduce a couple more characters involved. There is an introduction of a young heir, if you will. And Pat, who is that?
If I'm saying this right, Jaehaerys.
Yes. So
who is all of like 2 years old?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Just walking around with, an Egon's council, and they're having like a little fun moment that's taking place here. And I think that obviously when you see anything fun in the Game of Thrones, it's not going to last.
Right. And like I get what the king Aegon is doing. Like, oh, he's the one that's next in line. We got to start training him and blah blah blah. Like, okay, certain level I get that. The kid couldn't give any less fucks about being there. And he's not going to remember or retain any of this.
Yeah.
So why?
Exactly. So it's a moment that I thought they kind of telegraphed a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to institute that obviously when there's all this, nefarious double dealing going on with the king and meeting his people.
Yeah.
That they want to try to throw this moment in to kind of throw you off a little bit.
Right.
And I don't think it exactly worked because then obviously we get a quick flashback, or I should say a fast forward, if you will, to what Alicent Hightower is up to. And she has now have a suitor, if you will, a very undercover suitor, and one Christian Cole. So you see that they are getting extremely friendly amongst each other in the only way that Game of Thrones can do. And when we do see Fabian Frankel, who plays Sir Christian Cole, he is the head of Alicent Hightower's army. And this is very, very considered forbidden right now, what's going on. Because obviously when she took over as queen, to be messing around like this is not exactly the best of looks, so to speak, in front of the public's eyes. So they're trying to keep very, very quiet about their affair that's happening. All the while, Rhaenyra has returned to tell Daemon that basically she's taken out everybody. Like,
by the way, and the reason this is forbidden is because Alicent is a widow.
Yes.
So, not exactly condoned upon in the royal things.
No, any kind of stuff like that is not exactly something that flies in the Game of Thrones universe, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I got to admit. But like I say, Rhaenyra does have this moment with Daemon that she is basically just returned from her investigation, and she's just saying, like, listen.
Still grieving,
but, we still have to go do some business. Like, I want to go take care of Aemon in the worst way possible. And you do kind of see that Daemon is working some magic, if you will, on his own end. Because we do see Maricia, the White Worm, who has arrived in Dragonstone. And she has a lengthy charge of treason against her. And Damien winds up cutting a deal, as only Matt Smith can do.
Because I think he sees the opportunity.
And Pad, what does he wind up cutting?
Says, hey, listen, you help us get two assassins, you can go scot-free.
Yeah.
No strings attached, nothing untoward. You will be given a free reign to do whatever the hell you want and leave.
So it is very, very underhanded, very, very not on the book, so to speak, but this is what Matt Smith does, folks.
Pretty much.
That's why he's the MVP of this. So when he winds up sneaking into King's Landing, he does wind up bribing some people to go do his business. So with the recruits in hand, the plan is to go kill Aemon.
Yep.
But
problem is, they can't find him.
No, they can't find him.
Which, given the size of King's Landing, that's understandable.
It's understandable, but the fact these two snuck in like nothing into the castle.
Listen, money talks.
Yeah, I was going to say, they really made some rounds. They wind up getting into Helena's quarters. And we do see that there are two young children there. And we do see that they make the call to send a message.
They're like, we can't leave empty-handed.
Yeah. So, Pad, what do? They
kill the one kid, Jaehaerys.
So they kill the heir to the throne.
In front of his mother.
Yeah.
And kid.
Yeah.
Or not kid, sibling.
So you see Helena grab the sister Jaehaerys, and they wind up running into the mother's room while she and Christian are
in bed together.
And
doesn't even knock.
No, just
bursts in
crying. And Alicent obviously is. How is she going to explain that first and foremost?
Mid interaction, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yes.
Interaction,
to say the least. And we do see that obviously.
She's like, what happened?
Yeah, she's asking questions. What happened? Jaehaerys can't even comprehend the words.
And
literally, that's how it ends.
Yep.
It's insane how this all goes down because they don't show the act of what happens to Jaehaerys on screen.
You don't need to.
No, they don't.
You hear it.
No, you hear it, which that was already gruesome enough. And not condoning that one bit.
No. Nope.
I was like, I could have done without this, and we could have gone this. So I would say that's one thing I do fault on this show.
Sure.
I think they went a little too far with the. We could have just had an illusion and not heard the sounds, and it would have been fine. But I thought for overall, this is Game of Thrones 101.
Yeah.
They came back. They held no punches back. They really, made that last ending very uncomfortable. And I think that that's why they want to show the gruesomeness of the act, which was taking place. And that's why I say you can't really root for anybody in this show.
No.
Because there's no honor amongst thieves here.
I'm rooting for the Stark dude, Cregan.
Well, yeah.
Not the only person you can root for.
The Starks have been the only people you can root for. Him and Jon Snow. Those are the only ones you've actually been able to, see some nobility in.
Right.
Everybody else is scumbags.
Pretty much.
Sorry, just listen.
Is what it is.
Prove me wrong. Everybody else in this universe has done something heinous in one way, shape, or form, and they're not afraid to go to cross lines to do it. I mean, that's the one sick thing about this game of Thrones is there is no honor, there is no rules. It's just
there's no moral compass. That's for damn sure.
Oh yeah, completely. Like I say, I just thought they went a little over the top with that ending. Like I said, they didn't show anything, but still the sounds were like, I do not need to hear this. But I thought for overall, like excluding the ending, I thought they came back very strong. They set up some storylines, and to see where we're going for episode 2, I mean, I have no idea. I mean, obviously there'll be some repercussions.
Well, and that's kind of the vibe the preview at the end of the episode gave, is that it's not going to take long for people to figure out what the hell happened. And for as much as people have been talking about a war is coming, it sounds like this is the catalyst to start the war.
Oh, yeah, completely. I thought the first one was going to be with the dragon slaying that happened last in season.
You would have thought.
Yeah, with Lucerys. No, we just took this up a whole different level, and now all bets are off, and this is going to get messy. It's going to get violent.
Scorched earth.
Yeah. So
or Westeros, whatever you want to call it.
Brace for it, folks. I mean, like I say, if you're into the Game of Thrones universe, this is right up your alley. If this is your first time dipping in, this was a lot to process. So we'll have to kind of wait to see where we go into next week. In the meantime, though, hit us up on the hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts about Season 2's premiere of House of the Dragon entitled A Son for a Son? Let's talk about it, shall we? First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder, and you better listen to the ODPH podcast, or I'm coming for you, and Batman is coming for you.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about. The first of which is some surprising news for some, but not entirely surprising if you've kind of paid attention the last, 9 years or so. And that is there is going to be a sequel to the cult classic film Spaceballs. So reading from an article on Variety.com, it says, quote, a Spaceballs sequel is in development at Amazon MGM Studios. Josh Gad is set to star and will produce alongside Mel Brooks. Josh Greenbaum will direct the film from a screenplay by Benji Samit, Dan Hernandez, and Gad, while Kevin Salter will executive produce. The project is in its early stages, and plot details are being kept under wraps. Amazon declined to comment. Writing duo Samit and Hernandez are best known for their work as screenwriters for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, Addams Family 2, and the upcoming Disney Plus Lucasfilm special, Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy. The original 1987 MGM film Spaceballs starred Bill Pullman as Lone Star, John Candy as Barf, Daphne Zuniga as Princess Vespa, Rick Moranis as Lord Darkhelmet, and Brooks as President Scrobe and Yogurt. The space opera is a parody of both the Star Wars franchise and other popular sci-fi franchises like Star Trek and Alien. So, a little surprising for some, but I remember when Force Awakens was coming around, and I'm reading off of the Spaceballs fandom page. This has been in the works since 2015 because they announced Disney announced the purchase of Lucasfilm, and then they're like, hey, we're going to do more movies. And then Mel Brooks and a couple other folks are like, hey, this would be a great time to do another Spaceballs movie. And in fact, reading from the Spaceballs, like I said, the Spaceballs fandom, it says, quote, in February 2015, Mel Brooks stated that he is definitely open to making a second movie. With the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens later that year, Brooks figured it would be the perfect time to release a second installment to his beloved franchise, though he had some obstacles, such as getting the then retired Rick Moranis to reprise his role as the evil Dark Helmet. Brooks refused to make the movie without him, and having to sign a deal with Disney to spoof Star Wars yet again. As when he made the first film, he sought approval from George Lucas. In May 2017, while hosting a screening of Young Frankenstein, Brooks was asked by an audience member if Spaceballs 2 would ever come true. Brooks responded by saying that due to the success of new Star Wars films like Rogue One and The Force Awakens, and the then upcoming The Last Jedi and Solo, Star Wars exploded in popularity again, and Brooks revealed that MGM had interest in making a sequel. He further revealed that discussions were taking place concerning another Spaceballs film. So this has been in the works and been talked about for the better part of 9 years now. So the fact this is happening, not super surprising, but hey, should be good, I hope.
Well, I mean, Star Wars is in full swing, so I can understand the idea to bring it back. Josh Gad will be fine with it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if the whole lore is still there. I mean, I'm excited about it, but you got to think about for that time period and what it was, and can you recapture the magic?
Right.
Like, that's the only thing I would be kind of concerned with.
Right. Then you got the not entirely surprising, but I'm happy to hear it news that the folks over at Sony are going to do another Uncharted movie with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. So this was during a presentation at the Cine Europe trade show earlier this last week. The president of Sony International Distribution, Stephen Odell, gave an update on a bunch of projects the studios are working on, including 28 Years Later, which fuck, I'm excited for that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. They're doing a third one. I hope it's better than the second one.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. And a whole bunch of other stuff. They did announce and confirm that they are going to do an Uncharted 2 movie, which I know a lot of people are like, why? Because the first one had a budget of like $100 million and made $400 million at the box office. Is it the greatest movie of all time? No. Is it a fun summer movie that's like action-packed and you can watch and it doesn't have a super complicated plot and you can just watch it from start to finish and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's that movie. So, hey, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I want to keep my eyes out for that one.
Sure. Then you had the Nintendo Direct presentation that went on yesterday as we record, and you had a whole bunch of stuff announced by those folks. Won't read everything that was announced, but this is some of the highlights and stuff. I'm getting this off of a wonderful summary article from the folks over at IGN. Most notably, I think a lot of people are excited about, The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was announced for the Nintendo Switch. It's got a release date of September 26th of this year. And the main protagonist of this game, Zelda herself.
Let's go.
Oh, my Lord.
Love that.
Super excited. Might be the first time we played a Zelda. I don't know. Hashtag ODPH pod.
I want to think yes.
Probably. Then the long-rumored, long-anticipated Metroid Prime 4 Beyond finally got revealed, finally saw a trailer, finally got a release window. It was announced way back in Nintendo's E3 2017, so use that for a time frame. 7 years. But we finally got gameplay video, and it's got a 2025 release window, so people are super excited for that. You've got Mario and Luigi Brothership is coming this November, so that definitely looks real good. You've got an HD remake of Dragon Quest 3 coming to this Nintendo Switch in November. The remake of Dragon Quest 1 and 2 is coming in 2025. Donkey Kong Country Returns is getting HDified. That is coming to the Switch in January 2025. You got Super Mario Party Jamboree. That is coming on October 17th, 2024. I got to say, I haven't played a ton of the last Super Mario Party game they had come out for the Nintendo Switch. Had a ton of fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, they are what they are.
Yeah. Then didn't see this coming, but holy heck. The Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics is bringing 7 beloved games to the Switch, but also PlayStation, Xbox, and everything else. So this is bringing X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, and Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and The Punisher onto one disc.
I'm here for it.
Coming later this year. It will also include original songs from the arcade releases, development docs, and never before seen art. You had 4 games announced for Nintendo Switch Online that'll be available to play. That is so these are the games that came out in Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Color, previous iterations that if you have Nintendo Switch Online, you can pick these up and play these. If you have them, these are out now as we record. But the first of which is The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past and Four Swords. So this is the one that came out on the Game Boy Advance. Perfect Dark from the Nintendo 64. Turok from the Nintendo 64.
Yes.
And then Metroid Zero Mission from the Game Boy Advance. So if you've got the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, you will be able to pick those up. A couple of other interesting things that drop from the fine folks over at Nintendo. Got a little update on Luigi's Mansion 2. It's going to be almost here, coming June 27th, surprisingly. So definitely interested in that. Funko Fusion gameplay trailer. Yes, it's a Funko game. Yes, it looks real interesting. I got to admit, I'm a little curious about it. But a whole bunch of other stuff announced from the fine folks at Nintendo. Got to say, I'm a little interested in some of this stuff. So going to be fun to check out, and especially since my fiance has a Nintendo Switch, it's going to be real easy to pick up.
Yeah, I was going to say that'd be right up your alley. Listen, Marvel vs. Capcom, give me the money.
Uh-huh.
Give it to me right now. I'm here for it.
Uh-huh.
So for my one shots, I mean, this is kind of a joint one here too, because we were going to do a deep dive about the Acolyte Day episode, season 1's episode 4. But let's be honest.
Not a whole lot happened, and especially it was only like 25 minutes.
Yeah, it was a short episode. I mean, we'll give a spoiler-free statement.
Yeah.
I think for it. So, Pat, what'd you think?
Thought it was a decent episode. You know, it was interesting to see how things played out, and especially the ending. The ending was probably the strongest I've seen the show thus far.
Yeah.
And the cliffhanger, whoa boy. I know a couple people who had early press screeners for this show, and they only got the first 4 episodes. So the folks who've had the press screeners have been waiting to see what happens after that cliffhanger for the better part of a month or two now. God, that's got to be rough for them, especially waiting that long. But no, I thought the ending was really strong. I thought it was very interesting. We did have a cameo appearance of a prequel era character. Did not see that coming. I saw the person on screen and I went, huh, that looks like it's the same species as Ki-Adi-Mundi from the prequel trilogy. Didn't pay attention to the credits and it didn't even occur to me. But then I started seeing some people online talk about it. That wasn't just the species of Ki-Adi-Mundi in the episode. That was Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
Yeah, I thought that was something that the show needed.
Yeah.
Was just a little shot in the arm, so to speak.
A little fun.
You know, just a little jolt lightning.
Yeah.
You know, to really kind of kickstart it. And I think putting the Easter egg in there really worked. Because otherwise, this episode is, I mean, I'll be honest, it's okay.
Yeah. The end sequence where the fight picks up is the strong part of the episode.
I guess the easiest way I could describe it, this episode is basically Rogue One.
Yeah. Yeah.
Solid episode. Ending will blow you away.
Yeah, the ending is nuts.
That's the only thing you need to know about this episode. So we will definitely recap a little bit more next week on this. But like I say, there wasn't really a lot to deep dive in for a segment. So we'll just say go check the episode out, hit us up on those hashtags, and we'll definitely chat about it until next week. But this week, though, is New Comic Book Day as we record. Pad, before we get into it, there's a little bit of Marvel news we have to discuss.
Yes.
It was announced via our good friends at Marvel. They sent over the press release, and I'm reading it. Quote.
It's a lot of cheering with this.
Yes. Quote, Tombstone's revenge, spawning multiple issues. Spidey's most brutal battle begins in Amazing Spider-Man 58. Hitting stands in September, the visceral issue will kick off the climactic final arc of Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr.'s epic run, end quote. So there is a lot of opinions about this.
Yeah, there are.
If you don't believe it, ODPH Podcast Twitter.
Yeah.
Just go read it right now. Find the tweet. Trust me. Over 100,000 people have had something to say about it. So, yeah, we are going to take our victory lap about this. Yeah. Pad, you've read the series. In fact, I know that's one of your picks this week.
It is.
How are you feeling about this?
I'm bummed to see John Romita Jr. go because I've loved his art. His art has been great. As for the Zeb Wells stuff, very hit or miss. You know, I know previous writers, especially recent history, it was about damn near can't miss at the comic shop. This very mixed bag. You know, it's been there's been good. There's been bad. There's been a whole... Why? You know, so it's going to be interesting to see how it kind of puts a bow on things. I'm more excited and goes from there because you can only go up from here.
Any predictions?
No. I mean, listen, my bucket list would love to see it to be Charles Soule, but that would require him to take him off Star Wars, and I don't want that. For who? I have no idea.
I'm going to throw some karma out there. I would love to see it be Gail Simone.
Oh, I'd be all right with that.
I'm just going to throw it out there. I know that she's writing Uncanny X-Men. I believe on Twitter she teased a couple things that she hasn't announced yet. I'm just going to put the karma out there. If she's writing this, take my money.
Yeah, that'd be good.
The only other one that I would love to really see take a run with Spidey, but I'm pretty sure he's DC exclusive right now, is Mark Waid.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure he's DC exclusive.
That'd be good.
Mark Waid does really good work with characters like Spidey.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, Batman, Superman, just go read that. One of the best books you're going to read, period. But other than that, I'm just trying to think who's at Marvel that would really jump out in that circumstance. Right. So, I'd say I'd love the Hive Mind to take a shot with him, but that would, let's get weird. That's exactly what would happen. Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. Like I'm here for it. I love their stuff.
Yeah.
It's not out of the realm of thought. They're doing NYX. So I'm just saying. So definitely, hashtag ODPH pod. Let's talk about who would you like to see take over this creative team.
Yeah.
I am with you though. I think it's been very hit and miss. I like Gang War a lot.
Gang War was great.
But forget anything involving 24 and 25.
Yeah.
I don't have anything nice to say about it. I'm like, listen, I'm just gonna be honest. It was not my cup of Java. In fact, I was drinking water. We were not even talking coffee that day because that was just bad. I'm sorry. Like I
agree.
I'm gonna hold off on my rant. I was just saying, not for me, and I'm very strong opinionated about it.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see what happens starting in September. I'm definitely gonna be here for the ride, and obviously we got to talk about some more comics.
Yes. So my picks for this week over at the fine folks at DC, you've got Nightwing issue 115. Tom Taylor's still writing, so that means it's still amazing. The description of this is part 2 of the Heartless saga continues. When things go up in flames, Dick must put his feelings aside and help Shelton, aka Heartless, find his butler. After all, a superhero's job is to save everyone, even the very bad. But every noble sacrifice comes with a price, and Nightwing finds himself in a situation only someone as cunning as Heartless could have concocted. Super excited to read this. Then, from the fine folks over at Marvel, you've got Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 6. Jonathan Hickman is writing, need I say more? I will. The description of this is the shocking conclusion of the Ultimate opening arc. Spider-Man must finally confront the head honcho himself, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Kingpin, as owner and operator of the Daily Bugle, has been working with the Makers Council to control the spread of information in their favor, which means he's the first domino that must be toppled to end their regime. Plus, Mary Jane holds her own. Nuff said. Super excited for this. I know the list of who's going to be in the Ultimate Sinister Six just got revealed. It's very interesting. Going to be interesting to see where this goes. This issue, though, super excited to read. The cover looks awesome.
I will say this is probably arguably Marvel's best book right now. Arguably. And they have some really great books out right now, too. But Ultimate Spider-Man's doing it for me.
Then you've got Invincible Iron Man, issue number 19 from Gary Dugan. This one reads, War Machine versus Iron Man, from Iron War to War Machine to the Iron Patriot and back. James Rhodes has always been there for his best friend. Now, Rhodey has endured months in one of America's most brutal prisons to protect Tony Stark. What happens when he's had enough? Given the state of how Iron Man is doing these days, I don't like his chances.
Yeah, I don't either.
Oh, it's going to be interesting to see. Then you've got Captain America, issue number 10 from J. Michael Straczynski. The Price of Freedom. When a change agent on Captain America's recruitment list finds him, Cap expects the front door cabaret's protection to be an easy sell. Instead, he's confronted by a critical question. How do you protect someone who doesn't want your help? This series has been very good. Very underrated. You should definitely give it a read if you have the time. Then, from the still from the fine folks of Marvel, you've got Star Wars Jango Fett, issue number 4 from Ethan Sachs. This one is The Hunter Becomes the Hunted. Every major bounty hunter in the galaxy is stalking Jango Fett and Aura Singh. Will the unlikely partners solve the mysterious mystery of a priceless stolen artifact in time? Who will survive the shocking conclusion to the series? Gotta say, it's a very interesting read, just because it's Jango Fett, so it's clearly before the events of Attack of the Clones. It's also Aura Singh, who got a brief cameo in the Phantom Menace, fleshed out the character a little bit more in the Clone Wars animated series. So anytime you get more Aura Singh, I am fucking here for it. So I'm very excited to read this. Then from the fine folks over at Dynamite Comics, you've got James Bond 007 issue number 6 from Garth Ennis. This reads, as the time runs out for 007 to stop the deployment of the Stalvoda compound, he does what any good agent would do when faced with hopeless odds. He calls in an airstrike. Unfortunately, there is still the small matter of being stuck at ground zero when it arrives. Meanwhile, the snake in the grass at MI6 finally reveals himself. But is it too late for Bond to do anything about it? Featuring a suitably steely cover by Dave Johnson, 100 Bullets, Superman Red Sun, and Deadpool, and iconic interiors by Rafa Labasco, James Bond Black Box. The finale of Your Cold, Cold Heart marks a milestone for the first time Bond author Garth Ennis, and caps off a decade of James Bond comics at Dynamite. Super excited to read this. And lastly, certainly not leastly, the comic I reviewed for Nerd Initiative this week from Marvel, Amazing Spider-Man issue number 52 from Zeb Wells, which reads, Nothing is okay. The issue is so shocking and troubling, we can't even show you the cover. even though the cover's right there. But very interesting read this week, especially since a couple of little interesting plot points with the issue that, listen, people might change, spots never leave. That's all I'm going to say. If you've been reading and you know the current history of one character, one notable Spidey character who's had a long history with Peter Parker, old habits die hard. That's all I'm going to say.
Fair enough. For me, very short list, but still impactful. Grandma Chainsaw number 4. Obviously, we did the review from Nerd Initiative. Alan Dunford's campaign is wrapping up today as we're recording. Big success, so shout out to them. If there's still time, depending on when you hear this, you can try hitting up Alan and the team over at Rabbit in the Hat Studios. Definitely go make sure you get the trade paperback. We actually did a giveaway on Nerd Initiative.
Nice.
So it's something to keep in mind for. DC Comics, Batman 149.
Ooh.
Now, this one is a little interesting, to say the least.
Okay.
This has been something, if you've been reading Batman since Night Terrors,
Okay.
this is like the epilogue for everything that's happened since. This is a good break in the action, so to speak. It ties up a lot of loose points because next month for DC Comics kicks off Absolute Power.
Right.
That is going to be a very, very heavy Batman-centric crossover.
Right.
But you know why you've been reading this series. So this one ends a lot of things in a very unique spot going into where it's going to take place in Absolute Power. So I really dug this issue. I thought it was a great one. Chip Zdarsky had Michel Bandini and Steve Lieber on the artwork for this. So Jorge Jimenez was not on it, but he did a great cover. So like I say, there was a lot to enjoy with this. Like I say, if you've been reading Batman like I have, it ties up a lot. So if you're just coming in, it's a great one-shot story, but you might be a little lost about what's going on because basically it's the nice reset heading right into Batman 150 and Absolute Power. Comixology Original, Stout Club Entertainment, Roderick and the City of Moorhill. Pat, you might actually like this. This is one that's like a fantasy, almost like a lot of cartoon characters.
Yeah.
This
looks
is
like something I might see on a Saturday.
Yeah, this is something that kind of fits there. Is about a young mailman who has to deliver something to the city of Moorhill and winds up getting caught up in a little bit of trouble with some of the characters involved.
It looks like it, yeah.
So, like I say, this is a very fun read. If you're into like a little fantasy, a little, like I don't want to say like a Disney-esque movie kind of vibe, but it's a little more lighthearted, but I like to see what they're doing. Stout Club always puts out really good stuff on Comixology. If you haven't checked out their stuff, definitely make sure to go take a read on it digitally right now. Skybound Entertainment, Image Comics, Destro number 1.
Hey.
So this one, Energon Universe does not miss. Everything they've done has been on the money. Destro obviously comes in a big way. Dan Waters, Andre Bresson really establish what he's up to and really kind of shows the insides behind the man behind the mask. Really enjoyed the first issue. Let's see. Talking Image Comics, Ghost Machine, Red Coat number 3. Jeff Johns, Brian Hitch, Brad Anderson, Andrew Curry, and Rob Lay. This book, this is something for everybody. The artwork is phenomenal. The story is, it takes you all over the place. Really great stuff that they do over at Ghost Machine. This is another must-read. Easy, high recommendation here. House of Slaughter, number 24. So this is the penultimate issue of the Butcher War. This is one that we always say the Something is Killing the Universe does a slow burn drama build better than everybody. They've been building for this for quite some time. And this one is pretty much an all-action issue. And stuff hits the fan.
Okay.
And you get a lot of really intense stuff going on and how they're going to wrap up at 25. I don't know how this is all going to play out. I really don't. I'm really curious to see what happens after here. 25 is going to be the wrap-up of the Butcher War, and there's going to be so much stuff that hits the fan. It's not even funny. But I am all in about it. Last but not least, Skybound Entertainment, Image Comics, G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, number 307.
Ooh.
So this is the continuation from the Larry Hama story that they picked right up at 301 and kept rolling.
Yep.
So this is one, if you like that classic G.I. Joe feel, this has something for everybody. Ties into a lot of the building of the Cobra Civil War, as I'm calling it.
Okay.
Serpentor versus Cobra Commanders Forces versus G.I. Joe. A lot of moving parts happening here, but I love the Andy Kubert cover Like I say, he's been doing the covers for this series, and like that's worth the price of admission alone. Story is very solid, and like I say, if you've been a fan of that G.I. Joe feel, this is something that's been up your alley. And like I say, the Skybound Kickstarter right now, setting records for what they're doing.
Nice.
So definitely awesome. Love to see that. And we just ended like this. You're looking for more comic reviews, nerdinitiative.com is the space to go. We have a lot of them dropping today, so make sure you go check that out on your way to the comic shops, because, listen, there's nothing like going to your local comic store on a new comic book day Wednesday. That being said, for anything and everything it is the ODPH, you can find it at odphpodcast.com. That's it for entertainment this week. So for the one and only Padawan Jay.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.